Hi everyone, welcome to Exile Mixes. My name is Ainon. Some of you have requested me to do a step-by-step demo of my workflow here when I'm mixing with the Soundcraft Signature 22MTK, which is my main USB interface, together with my DAW of choice, which is Logic Pro. So without much ado, let's get on to it. Let's go to the first step, importing tracks. Before I import the tracks into Logic Pro, I set the sample rate to the correct figure, either 44.1 kHz or 48 kHz, depending on the native sample rate of the raw tracks. I start the session by importing the audio files into Logic Pro, setting up the mix. I learned how to mix using analog mixing consoles, and I have maintained the same approach in laying out tracks on any DAW that I work with. So this is what I mean. On the mixer window, all individual tracks or stems are placed left to right. Here we have the vocals, the backing track, the bass, a second bass track, the guitar and melody stem, two more guitar tracks, and then the percussion stem or the drums. Here in the middle is the stereo return or the analog input from the Signature 22MTK. This is where you record the resulting mixdown from the board. To the right of all individual tracks or stems are the aux buses, just as they appear in analog mixers. These are stereo buses that I place compressors, reverbs, delays, flangers, and other effects in. Just like in an analog workflow, when signals are being sent to racks of outboard gear and returned to stereo tracks on the console. Let's see what we have in these buses. The first four, we have 4 different flavors of compression. I use all of them for parallel compression. Here we have the crush bus with a Focusrite Scarlett compressor set to max pumping. I use it to crush drum buses or just overheads. Next is the punch aux bus. This is where I send tracks that I want to add some more punch, of course. It has the classic SSL G-Comp in it. For glue, I have another bus for that, and in it is the classic API 2500. And yes, they're all from Waves. Some people have a problem with this. I don't. I like them. They're fine. And you can use whatever you have. The last in line is the Warmth aux bus. Here I have the Puigchild 670. Of course, this one is the emulation of the Fairchild 670. Now let's go back to the stems. Since this is an analog hybrid workflow, I don't usually insert EQs in the tracks on the DAW. I leave that for later on when we do the mixing properly on the analog mixing console outside of the box. So no EQs in the tracks. I'll leave all the EQ tweaking on the console later on. There are no compressors on the Signature 22MTK, so the compression happens on the DAW before going out of the box. Let's see what we have on the vocal chain. We have the CLA 76 on top to catch the fast transients, and the CLA 2A to even out the consistency of the signal. Then we have the Dromer S73 processor. It's actually a mastering processor from Softube to enhance the vocal presence. And for the other stems, like the bass, I got a similar setup as well. The idea is to catch the peaks with a fast compressor like the 1176 and even out the dynamics with a slower optical compressor like the LA2A, which I have the plug-in versions of. And for the guitars, I need them to shimmer and poke through the mix. So I put up the V-Comp, and after that, Slate's Fresh Air to add crispness to the guitars. For this example, I'm using the stem session from Ed Sheeran's famous hit song, Shape of You. I think most of you would know that song, so popular. It must have been 5 or 6 years ago, but I think it's still popular now. So I'm just discussing in this project how I would approach if I'm given this kind of project. So you will see a little bit of alterations here and there, and I will explain everything. In this case, I made this existing hit sound a bit more edgy by changing two sounds to make those parts more aggressive. Everyone knows how this song sounds. Now let's see what I have done to it. For the vocals, I added a telephone call type distorted sound in bits of the vocal lines. Let's listen to how it goes.
A club isn't the best place to find the lovers, so the bar is where I go. Me and my friends sat at the table doing shots, drinking fast, and then we talk slow.
I didn't duplicate the lead vocal track and apply effects to it. Instead of doing that, I animated the send to the effects bus with a distortion chain on it to initiate this effect. I set the send to pre-fader so that I can still manipulate the main volume of the track without affecting the signal sent out of that channel. To turn this effect on and off, I had to animate the main volume fader as well, so it can alternate between the send with the effect on and the main vocal part with the effect off. Makes sense? It's a bit tricky, right? But what's shown on screen might help, and just listen to the effect.
Now I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead.
Let's see what I have in the effect chain to create the distortion effect. First in line is the vinyl plugin by iZotope to add scratches. Then next in the chain is the valve filter from AudioThing. This plugin adds distortion to the signal. At the chorus, I noticed an acoustic guitar track blended in with a synth melody line stem. I decided to add distortion to it to make it sound like an electric guitar, but only for that part. For the distorted guitar, I did something similar to what I have done with the vocals. I sent the signal to an effects bus. In fact, I made two effects buses. One for the first two parts and the other for the end part of the song. I decided to do this because the end part was more dense and the guitar needed a bit more aggression to poke through the wall of sound. For the first effects bus, I added a modern rock-style amp from Logic's library and a pedal board with overdrive and fuzz pedals. The second effects bus doesn't have an amp, but it has a pedal board with more aggressive sounding effects in it, the Monster Fuzz and the Tube Burner. After the pedal board, I inserted the Acon Digital Multiply plugin to add some chorus effects. There is also one part where I added a bass track under the melody line. This time, I duplicated the track since it didn't exist in the place where I wanted in the original sequence. Now for this external output routing. After all the tracks and buses have been set up and all the effects have been routed to whatever they need to be and whatever mix that we need to do inside the box, now it's time to go outside of the box to the mixing console. At this point, I will assign the outputs of each track to individual channels or channel pairs on the console. I will do the same with the FX buses at the right side of the mixer window. In Logic Pro, these external outputs go out in pairs even if you assign mono tracks out to a corresponding mono channel on the board. You will still see one of them shown as one side of a pair in the analog dual mono output channel like this. One thing to remember, you always start assigning external outputs from channels 3 to 4 because channels 1 and 2 are assigned to the stereo output by default. The monitoring of the stereo output of the DAW is controlled by these two channels by default. While I'm mixing the individual channels or stems, I keep them off. There is a way to use all of the channels. If you want to use channels 1 and 2, you can do so by assigning mono channels to them. And then after you've mixed everything, just capture back to the DAW, and that's when you use channels 1 and 2 for your stereo monitoring. Now we get to the board. For me, this is the exciting part. From the top, you get the gain pots, which we won't use because they are only active when in recording mode or fully analog mode. More on that later. Next, you got the high pass filter and USB return switches. The USB return switch is the entry point of the audio signal from Logic and is not affected by the gain knob. The audio comes in at this point and not from the preamp level, which the gain knob controls. That's why adjusting the gain doesn't affect the signal coming in from the DAW. Then we have the 4-band EQs, 2 of which are sweepable. These are the lower mids and upper mids, and they are fantastic. The lowest is a shelving EQ band that goes down to 60 Hz. Not all analog mixers at this size and price point has this feature. Most stop at 80 Hz. We get more thump in this little console. The highest band is a smooth 12K EQ band. This EQ is gold in my opinion. It's smooth. Next, we have the aux sense, the green knobs. This is what you use to send cue mixes to stage boxes or headphone distribution systems. There are 3 of them, so you can send 3 different cue mixes to 3 different band members. These blue buttons are the effects sense. There are 2 banks of Lexicon effects on this board, so you can use 2 at a time. If you need more cue mixes sent out, these 2 effects sense can be used as cue sense as well. You will then have 5 cue sense in all. Now we come to the signal flow. The signal comes from the top. Post gain knob, and that is important, please take note. This I already explained a bit earlier. To have perfect signal flow, make sure all the channels with tracks assigned have the USB return buttons depressed so signal can pass through vertically from the high pass filter, past the EQ, the aux, the effects sense, PFL button, the routing switches, and down to the fader. The routing from the channel to the master section is awesome in this board. The master fader controls the stereo channels 23 to 24 that are routed via USB back to Logic Pro as the stereo mix. To make sure that all channels that are assigned to outputs from the DAW will be sent to the master, depress the master switch on each of those channels. If you are sending a copy of the same mix to studio monitors on groups 1 to 2 and 3 and 4, you can also select these buttons on each channel. To feed the signals from groups 1 to 2 and 3 to 4, switch on the routing buttons on top of each group. If you want to send a mono signal from each group, switch on the mono button on top of each group pair so that you can listen in mono. And in addition, I was saying a while back that when you're sending cue mixes, their master cue sense, the 5 green knobs here, they control all the cue sense from 1 to 5. So if you decide to send all 5 cue mixes to 5 different musicians, this will help you control that. And the outputs are on top of the master section. And you can hook up all those connections there. And then to the right of the master knobs of the cue sense are switches. One bank is for the PFL when you just want to listen. When you click on one of these, it will route the signal to the headphone output so you can listen to whatever's happening in just that particular mix. And also you can control whether it is pre or post fader. I suggest you do pre-fader so that it will be independent of whatever is being mixed for the master. Whatever is in the cue sense are totally different. That's why I prefer it should be pre-fader so that they remain independent. My current setup includes a monitor controller, so the routing I described right before this does not apply anymore. I now simply get the master output and route it to the controller. I use the Mackie Big Knob passive and hooked up 2 sets of monitors to it. This leaves me 2 pairs of group outputs to use for master bus processing. Now we get to the mix.
up a conversation with just me, and trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop it, and the man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance. And now I'm singing like, your love was handmade for somebody like me. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. I'm coming now, follow my lead. Come coming now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room, and now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body. Well, I'm in love with your body. Waist and put that body on me. Well, come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart.
Now that the mix is done on the board, everything has been done here now. The mix is ready. Now it's time to capture everything that we have done on the board back to Logic Pro. So let's do that now. Now in the DAW, record ARM the analog return track and hit play. It will automatically play the multi-track through the board and record the stereo mix back in the DAW.
The club isn't the best place to find the lovers, so the bar is where I go. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. I'm coming now, follow my lead. Coming now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room.
Now, mind your ears, the master track is coming up and will be a lot louder than the final mix.
Girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room, and now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body. Well, I'm in love with your body. Well, I'm in love with your body. I'm in love with your body. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. Come on, be my baby, come on. 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 I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room, and now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. Well, I'm in love with your body. Come on, be my baby, come on. Come on, be I'm in love with your body. Come on, be my baby, come on. Come on, be I'm in love with your body. Come on, be my baby, come on. Come on, be I'm in love with your body. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you.
I hope you have learned quite a few things from this demo. And thank you so much for watching and coming back to my channel. I really appreciate it. So till next time, cheers.